Welcome to Menopause and Miracles, the podcast where midlife women come to challenge what they've been told to accept and to remember what it feels like to want more. This is a space for honest conversations about resilience, reinvention, and the moments that ask something deeper of us, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Today's conversation brings in a perspective that might feel different, but is deeply relevant. What it looks like to stop managing what isn't working instead of rebuilding from the ground up. And while this story may seem extreme, the truth underneath is it's universal. There comes a point where we all have to decide if we keep adjusting to life that doesn't fit or have the courage to change it. I'm Suzanne, your host and your midlife wingwoman. I'm here to help you navigate the moments where something no longer fits and something more is quietly asking to emerge. This isn't about quick fixes or surface level change. It's about learning how to listen to yourself again, to build strength in ways that support the life you want and make decisions that feel aligned even when they're uncomfortable, because you don't have to figure it all out alone and you don't have to stay where you've outgrown. This is episode 45, Die to Live, the discipline that changes everything. So, what would you do if someone told you this is as good as it gets? Manage the pain, take the pills, adjust your expectations, and learn to live just a little more smaller or compromised. At 44, that's exactly what my guest was handed: a body breaking down, constant pain, and a future that looked nothing like the life he wanted. So he gave himself a deadline: 911 days to rebuild everything or die trying. And again, while this story may seem a little extreme, the question underneath isn't really where in your life you have quietly accepted something that isn't working and call it fine. It's a call to change. So today I want to explore what it actually takes to stop accepting what's not working and to rebuild something different. So my first male guest is Cam Corden, author of Savage Chill, Die to Live, who turned what could have been a slow decline and again, a 911-day experiment in discipline, resilience, radical responsibility. He's a men's health coach focusing on weight loss, strength, and recovery based out of South Florida. And he's also created the Savage Chill community by offering a system for men who refuse to, as he puts it, die slowly. Welcome, Cam. I'm so glad you're here today.
Great to be here.
Yeah, how is it in South Florida?
It's rainy today, but
Okay.
it's kind of nice.
Yeah, we're getting a little rain here in greater Los Angeles as well. So it is kind of nice. So our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Tell us where you are personally on the midlife meter. Are you just starting out somewhere in the middle?
Well, I'm gonna be 50 in a couple months.
Okay, very exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think everyone goes through it.
Yeah. I think everyone should get a badge, like a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout badge once you make it to 50, because that's a good amount of time to be going around the sun, 50. So,
Yeah, it
so
is.
you, yeah, you mentioned at 44, your body was destroyed with nerve damage, arthritis, just crazy pain. Was that from overtraining, genetics, or what was going on for you?
It could be all of the above. You know, I did overtrain. I did push it to the edge all the time for, since a young age. It's kind of my identity. And I always like pushed through everything, never ever stopped. Injuries kept going, and eventually the bill becomes due. And
Mm.
I started feeling it at 37. Something was clearly wrong.
Mm.
And by 42, like it was pretty bad. And at 44, it was apocalyptic.
Yeah. Well, your doctors were telling you at that point, and I'm sure you probably did all the things. Maybe you could tell us otherwise. I kind of I felt like at 47, my body had been in a car crash. It's just the amount of pain and the immobility that hit. And so your doctors were, I'm sure you did like the PT or other things, but at a point, your doctors were telling you to manage it with pills, and when you were sitting in that moment, what made you decide not to accept that?
I just like honestly, I didn't want to become a prescription junkie, and that's eventually what happens to everyone. And you're rotting from the inside out. And I just didn't want to go through life with a managed decline.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and on the personal level, you mentioned just you highlighted in the book that you had a marriage in ruins and the body breaking down and just kind of reaching the end of yourself, which I really drew me into you because that's kind of how I referred to my experience. It was just coming to an end of myself, whatever was working. For me, it was whether it's putting on masks, personas, people pleasing, like you said, training hard. I was doing, and not that I was a CrossFit athlete, but
Ooh.
I was doing CrossFit because I love lifting weights and it was fun and in the community. But, was I caring for myself to balance that out? Because I think taking advantage of, youthfulness, right? Like I'll just bounce back. And at some point you don't.
Yeah, you don't. And it, I mean, you definitely, with age, you have to change. There's no question. And CrossFit is one of those things I always, I'm glad you brought up CrossFit, but CrossFit, usually people join it to get in shape, and it is fun, but it really destroys your central nervous system instead of
Mm,
trains it. And eventually, you get injured. It affects your ability to handle stress, sleep.
mhm.
Um, and
Yeah,
especially when you're older, it's really, really hard on your body. You can't train like a 20-year-old at 40.
yeah,
I'm guilty of it,
yeah,
but it will take a toll,
yeah,
and like a really bad toll.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, all I wanted to do because I had the immobility, like, in my legs, and I just was like, "If I can just walk normal again, I'll be really happy to change my program," because, you just wanna be mobile in some way, and we're lucky that there's so many ways that you can exercise, be mobile, stretch, strengthen. Um, for you, there was a night you had with a kettlebell, the deep end of a
Yep.
pool, and what seemed like a spiritual kind of death or dark night of the soul, and that was, like, seemed to be a deciding moment night. What kind of was going on in your mind at that time to choose, life versus death?
Well, um, I was in my third marriage, and I had a son from a previous marriage living at the house. He was in high school, and roughly he had 2.5 years to go to college. So I figured, I did the math. It's roughly 911 days till he's in college. And my
Mm,
body felt like it was broken. I felt 70 years old. And I was thinking, what do I have to fight for? I did my job with my son. I'm going through a divorce, third marriage, that sounds terrible to begin with. And like, what do I have to fight for?
mhm,
And I saw the kettlebell and I said, it's either I fix all these aches and pains and nerve damage, and basically my whole life, it was upside down. or I just grab the kettlebell and walk into the pool for one last time, chain it to my ankle and just let it go. And I felt instant relief because there was an end in sight, and it wasn't like a suicide pact. It was, I'm
Mm,
gonna try to fix it, and the consequence if I don't is this, because I'm not
yeah.
gonna just slowly decline.
No, I love that you made a decision, be it life or death, and like you said, it wasn't I think so many I'm guilty of living in limbo of indecisiveness. And once you decide, it's like a relief. You don't have to be in that constant back and forth. And then you also, it's kind of taking the responsibility, like I'm going to do the work, which I think most people would like a quick fix, of some sorts. And there's plenty out there. Um, what did midlife for you? Um, has it given you anything different, when you're coming into midlife? Is it giving you back anything, you know, perspective, wisdom, anything that you just felt different entering into midlife and coming upon 50?
I mean, right now I feel great. Because I'm past the hurdle of feeling terrible, so I'm healed, uh, remarried, very happy,
Nice.
and I think that you have a choice in life when you get to a certain age. You can, like, accept. I always like to use the scenario is that you're on a chairlift, and you can choose to get off the chairlift at an earlier stage and ski down the hill. But I think it's important to keep going up the chairlift because eventually we're all going to ski down the hill. But it's like, how long do you want the ride to be?
Mm, yeah, that's a great analogy. Tell us a little bit about the system you built to attain this. I know there was some things noted like cold exposure, kettlebells, the carnivore diet, I think, sleep and discipline. What
Yeah.
made you, yeah, put this together?
Well, I mean, I had 911 days to try to fix it, and I did a lot more besides that. And I think that, and it's very systematic. And I really talk about systems. I have a background in systems, system dynamics. Is that one, you have to almost, in today's world, because information comes at you so fast, you have to systematize everything because otherwise you feel overwhelmed and it drains your willpower. But even before, like, we talk about systems and any of this other kind of neat stuff, is like, I think you have to eliminate clutter in your life, from physical clutter. If you walk into a room and you have piles everywhere, those are decisions you have to make because you walk past it, "Oh,
Mm,
I have to deal with this," even though you defer it, and then the decisions keep increasing, and it
mm,
causes anxiety. So if you're actually trying to change your life, that will interfere with your progress because it's piling up. It's more information thrown at you. The same thing with, like, social media, your phone alerts. It's information coming at you, and it's a distraction, from, and it drains your willpower from actually changing the system.
yeah.
Because if you don't really change the system, like the overall structure of your operating system, eventually you'll fall back to it. So
Do you have Did you have experience with clutter, or you just something you notice? I've had a few guests on here talk about clutter.
well, yeah, because I've been, married multiple times, divorces, in pre-marriage, and, like, always when I had a home wherever I was living that looked like in a hotel room, everything was great. It's then the marriage would come, the clutter would start piling up, and it's not like a hoarders episode type clutter, but it would start piling up, and then you would notice it when you'd move, you'd have all these boxes, and, like, you don't need the stuff,
Well, it's
but
that
somehow.
responsibility too, right? It's like,
Right.
I'm responsible for all this stuff.
Yeah, and so it takes a toll, and every time, like, a marriage ended or I moved, I would end up getting rid of a lot of stuff, and then my performance would increase in,
That's
like, all aspects of my life, and
yeah,
then the, a new marriage, then the clutter would slowly build, and on the last marriage that ended, when she was actually, like, leaving, I told her, "Take all the take what you want." She took all the furniture, which was great, no complaints there, but, like, there was a lot of stuff left over that I had to, like, pack up and clean and just throw out, and I saw it, and I said, "Oh my god." Like
yeah,
certain things would disappear in the house and think that, like, the cleaning lady would steal it, and I knew the cleaning lady didn't steal it, but there'd be arguments about it, but it was, you know, socks, for instance, and then I'd find the socks in a utility closet, and I was thinking, like, clutter really causes a lot of problems because it's just chaos.
yeah.
So, I changed I was already doing the system already, but it really makes an impact on making permanent changes is when you have a house that you come into and it's a calming effect, not
Yeah.
like you see it and it's like, oh, I have to
Yes.
deal with that. So I recommend now, even though I didn't do it in this order, is you really have to eliminate clutter. I think it's really important. It's
Yeah.
it just makes you feel better. When empty desk, everything looks just very clean. I'm not
Mhm.
saying to be a minimalist, but there is some benefits,
Yeah.
um,
Mm.
just for the mental mind. And I think that's
Yeah.
really important when you're actually trying to make changes. You have to be able to get rid of stuff. And if you look at overall, when people make changes or you go on Instagram and the influencers that, as soon as the influencer says, you have to add this, this is the problem is we are adding so much, but for
Mm.
everything you add, you have to subtract. And if
Mm.
you're actually looking at it as like a battle or a war, you don't add. You're looking to subtract the enemy. And,
Yeah.
so I think that's the real key, and when you start adding on already a broken system, it causes huge amounts of, chaos.
Yeah, so that's a big part of your program and your what you're about, and then the system you built was, it's, kettlebells, is that your workout, the diet? Tell us a little bit about your discipline there, cold exposure and
Yeah, well, the cold exposure really was probably one of the biggest things that, like, it helped the body tremendously, but it helps the mind.
Mhm.
It's like a nervous system reset, like, you're in control, and we'll back up to in my program is the 2 rules are no panicking and no whining, and I think that the cold exposure it teaches you not to panic because
Mhm.
it's uncomfortable. It will
Yeah.
always be uncomfortable. I've been doing it for so long now, and it's always something. Each day I'm thinking like, oof, it's never easy, but it resets your brain. It makes you feel great. It makes your body feel great. And from doing the cold exposure, my body was healing pretty fast, and I was doing it excessively. Not your typical, 3 minutes at 50 degrees. Mine was as cold as it could go. I still recommend that. The colder, the
Yeah.
better. And I even had it below freezing with Epsom salt just to really push that panic button. Because if you think about it, is panicking never helps a situation. And eventually you're going to be in a situation where life hits you in the face and you
Yeah.
can't panic. So I think that, like, even if you're fine, it's good to
Good
learn to
training.
recognize that, panicking is not okay. And especially, I will say this is a man, there's a difference. Women naturally panic and will complain. This is sorry. I mean, this is the truth. It's more
Okay.
so, but as a
Is it
man, you can
scientific? Is this a scientific thing?
no, it's from experience.
Okay.
I mean, you're in a relationship, you can
Yeah.
expect, complaining, women panicking, but, like, as a man, though, I think that you have to be the leader in that aspect of if something is extreme, like, terrible happening, you have to be able to be in control,
Right. Yeah.
and if you're panicked, your wife or girlfriend's gonna be even more panicked, or
Yeah.
if you panic and you have kids, they're going to panic too. So, I think that it's an overall mindset that it helps everyone, and if you don't panic, it's gonna be, contagious in the household.
Yeah.
Your
Definitely has
wife
an
or spouse
effect.
won't panic as much either. So,
Yeah.
it's only a strong benefit to everyone, and I
Yeah.
think the cold exposure really helps that because you're choosing discomfort intentionally.
Mhm.
And that is really kind of part of the whole system is choosing discomfort because we do live in comfort more so than ever before in history.
For
So,
sure.
and it makes you more prone to panic because we have it so good right now. Like
Yeah.
it's really unbelievable. If you even think about it, you want to order something, it gets delivered right to your door. You don't have to go out. Everything is so convenient and comfortable that
Yeah.
people panic now, more now than ever before as well.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. What were you taught about pain, strength, or asking for help, growing up, and how did that shape kind of the response of what you went through? Were you, as a man, like, taught to deal with pain or strength or asking for help in a specific way, or did you learn it on your own?
Well, I guess growing up, I grew up in a tough household, um, and I was involved in sports, and I think it was just part of the environment that you just dealt with it. I don't know. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I also think the new generation, like my son's generation, he's 21, they've been really coddled, like
Mm,
extremely, like so much versus when you and I grew up. You just did whatever you wanted. You came home before dark. Now
yeah.
it's so protective, and I think it makes them more fragile.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think that our generation, maybe it was too extreme, maybe, and this generation is too extreme. There's probably a better thing right in the middle,
Mm,
just to be, like that will probably works. So I think that naturally everyone that has kids now that are roughly our age, they might have been like coddled too much because we talked about, oh, we had it so hard. And they'll probably also coddle their kids a lot because they think they had it hard.
yeah.
I
I
think
don't
it's just the nature of the evolution. And I think
right.
it's not necessarily a good thing. I think that when you choose discomfort intentionally, it does help you overall versus
Yeah.
because eventually discomfort will find you.
Yes, it will. Yeah, it's there. What do you think in midlife, do you think men are still performing strength instead of living it? I mean, maybe what is your definition of strength to just understand, again, are there a lot of men performing it, or actually do you feel the generation of men today are strong in a sense? It could be physically, mentally, emotionally.
I think overall pretty weak. I mean, I know a lot of men my age, and they are too comfortable,
Mm,
and
mm,
they're probably like physically stronger than the past generations. I will give them that, but I think mentally weaker.
mm,
They
yeah.
the more people go to the gyms than their fathers probably. That's that's for sure. but I think mentally they're a little on the weaker side. And you see it even in athletics. The athletes have gotten better, stronger, more technical, but they are not as mentally tough as they used to be.
Yeah, what do you think is just the mindset of, like you said, what you described before, where we had to deal with things in a much I don't wanna say it's direct, I'll say direct way than, instead of harsh, than indirect. I mean, or there's a lot of distraction, I guess that could be it as well, but what do
I
you
think it's the
think?
technical advances, if we take sports as the example, is you
Yeah,
see like all the like for time sports, it's probably the easiest. How like swimming is probably the best example because they've made big technical improvements. So like girls are in like long distance swimming, not the sprints. We're like faster than the guys were like 40 years ago. You
wow,
know, and from the technical advancements.
yeah,
But,
wow,
um, are they tougher? Probably not, you know? I think it's, like, technical advancements, whether
yeah,
it's in sports, technology, it does make you softer because it's a
yeah.
form of comfort,
Yeah,
efficiency.
it's something you rely on, I guess, where before maybe you had to just rely 100% on yourself, right? So you didn't have all these added things. I mean, in your healing journey, what things did you have to unlearn for yourself?
Um, well, I think that like, what I did is I unlearned everything. And started right from the basics is because I realized like I had a rotted foundation, like from mindset to actual body that I needed to start over. And I started, you know, another thing I really talk about a lot is water. So I
Mhm.
really increased the water tremendously. And I can say that a lot of people I've worked with are severely dehydrated.
Mm,
Even, like, you know, I'd say most people are, like, 35 and up, but, like, I work with some kids that are, like, 19, 20, and they're suffering from brain fog, and, they walk me through their day, and it's just dehydration.
yeah.
And I think what they recommend, like, 8 glasses of water a day, it's not enough, you
Mm,
know, especially and I only know this is because I eat 1 meal a day. And so when I started that 17 years ago, I felt that you had to really like right away I noticed you have to drink more water. But then when I switched to only eating meat, I realized another thing is like you really have to drink a lot more water.
yeah.
And even if you're eating 3, 4 times a day, you really do need a lot of water. And if you look at Tom Brady, you know, probably the greatest football player ever, and he has his training program, the TB12. And his biggest thing was water consumption, and he was, like, very anal about it. I am
Mm,
too, but I just read about it. Is he recommends 1 ounce of water per pound, and that's if you're doing nothing for the day. But if you're out in the heat, it's even more, and, like, if he's working real hard, it's 2 to 3 times your body weight. I mean, that's a lot of water.
yeah.
And you can't really knock his success, and I like injuries, like he had a pretty injury, free career. I think 1 knee surgery, but it's a pretty long time. I think he played till 47.
Yep. Pretty
It was
miracle.
yeah, so and it was like the big backbone of his whole workout, I mean, his whole methodology was water, and people underestimate how important like the basic is. But if you think about it, like water is the most important thing in our body. It's the most abundant thing in the body. So it's a naturally a good place to start. And if you don't get enough water, and like what most people, they wake up and then they hit the coffee maker. You wake up, you're already dehydrated.
I'm
Then you have the
guilty.
coffee, you're even further dehydrated. Then anxiety, you know, you start feeling a little stressed. then the shallow breathing starts, and it's like a death spiral for your day. And then you start
Yeah.
seeing clutter.
Well, and then that's hilarious. I think it is I'm always amazed that doctors never ask. I mean, in all my time of going to doctors, they rarely, if never, ask how much water do you drink. And I believe just from a standard health perspective, like that is a cause, like you said, dehydration of so many things. What's one habit or pattern, you think is helping people in midlife, but is actually keeping them stuck? Like, so whether it's a popular habit or what people are doing, but you see that it's keeping them stuck.
Well, I think because I made that 911-day contract is it's like it is extreme. You just accept that death is inevitable. And I think once you accept that, you change your perspective how you're going to do things. And it's a big difference from playing not to lose to playing to win and not
Mhm.
really caring about the outcome. And I think that alone changes the whole thing. And it again goes back to comfort. Is your
Mhm.
comfort, your life is on autopilot, and it's just like you're just slowly running the clock out. And
Yeah,
I think once you make the switch to like, you don't care what the outcome is, you just do it, win or lose, whether you're starting a new business, a new relationship, people don't have that like killer mentality, like go for it. And I think
mhm.
if you just go for it and let the chips fall wherever they fall, because eventually, I mean, death will hit you,
Right.
literally everything. And people are scared of failure, but at the very end, we're all gonna fail, so it's like, don't be scared, have change that mindset, because it's just that after a certain age, you're just gonna slowly, it's just gonna erode more and more and
Sure.
more, and you're gonna be less and less excited. And,
Well, when people are wondering, like you said, just even the little things that they have occur in their life, like it still could be brain fog, it could be discomfort walking, it could be bad sleep. I mean, just I think fear versus dying, like, but I don't know if that still wakes people up that it just takes effort to live a good and healthy life. And it's like, where do you want to put that effort? Zero effort or a little more effort to get different results. What did this whole experience, this 911 days, teach you about, vulnerability that you maybe didn't understand before, as far as kind of sounds like a humbling experience, to come to that point?
I mean, it is humbling because you really get a chance to look back. And I think that the go back into the system is I really systematized every aspect of it. And without all that chaos, I could go back and look at like my past patterns, because I had so much extra time on my hand that I could see, if wives two and three both basically said the same thing, that there's some truth to it. I can't
Mm.
be,
The
and
common denominator.
yeah, I'm not going to be a victim, like, because it's easy to blame, someone else. It's very, very easy, but you really don't learn anything. And there's always um, two sides. And even if it really turned out like you can give people give these horror examples. Everyone can
Yeah.
give a horror example about a past relationship. But what was the driving point for them to behave like that you were doing and that you didn't change, that drove them up the wall? And I
Yeah.
think that everyone has that, but if you have it kind of like systematize your life, you can reflect more. And I think that is probably another thing in today's world. You really can't reflect like you used to. As comfort increased, reflection decreased. There's no question in my mind about that.
I love that connection. That is so true. I like to say, I did in my coaching a digital detox just to say, take back your thoughts and your mind because, you're not having them. They're being kind of filtered for you and you're just in consuming mode. So definitely love that reflection, yeah, versus kind of the distraction. What do you think men don't say out loud about midlife that they should? I mean, I don't know. Are men how men talk about midlife in a sense? Do they, you know,
I guess it depends on like each type of man because there's different types, different mentalities. I mean, I don't know how they really talk about it. And I know that like I have friends that I trained with that are, maybe they're a couple years younger that, I said, Read my book," and they read it, they love it, and they relate to it. And then there's some men that, they can't relate to it. It's because it's like a different mindset. I don't, and I'm sure you can kind of picture in your mind what type of man is like that. And,
hmm
it's like they're, so it really depends, because I went through the whole midlife, all at once. Body was breaking down. I was going through my second divorce. I feared being alone. I found a woman 16 years younger. It's the slingshot relationship, and moved to another country to meet her. Then we lived there, brought her back, and it was a disaster. Like because you weren't dealing with your actual problems. I think that's probably the common denominator of all men is they avoid and they add something to prevent reflection. And
Of
that's no.
reflection or probably feelings as well, right? Like you said, what's really going on. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good I love that, avoid and add. That's a yeah, interesting concept. From your perspective, where do you see women in midlife maybe? I know you mentioned working with a few women clients. Where do you see them holding themselves back in this scenario of change?
I'm gonna go out on the limb, and I've seen some women in midlife that they are, I would say, tougher than men mentally. And I think it's like it's crazy to say this, but I mean, like, very like they don't like whine about, well, I'm like, we're gonna do this. They're all for it. They're doing it, and then like I've seen some men, and like I was embarrassed by a couple, and I'm
Okay.
thinking in my mind like, oh my god, the women seem like overall like tougher, and I think that women, it depends like what their past was, but like women do have a tougher road. Um, because they have to fend for themselves, especially they're in a relationship, they have kids, and all of a sudden their husband leaves. They're pretty much all of a sudden have to, what I mean, they have to survive while a man can take a different route. So I do
Yeah.
think by the dynamics of the system, how it's created now, with divorce being so easy, that women have become tougher. And I
Um,
think like mentally tough, their majority of them are tougher than men. And I think that they're more likely to land on their feet than a man.
in midlife, yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think women may do you see anything where they underestimate about their own strength?
Um, that is a good question. I'm underestimate. No, because women are pretty humble overall compared to men. I would say. I don't think they really. I think they're pretty well calibrated. I haven't really. I think the only thing from the where being in the dating world is that a lot of women have totally unrealistic expectations of
You're gonna bring that here, are you?
oh
No.
yeah, you know. like, they have very, like, unrealistic expectations, and, I've told a couple too I was friends with that, you want a guy that's, worth $100,000,000, 6'2",
Mm.
um, your
Good luck to
age,
you. Is that what you say? Good luck to you.
and I just tell them the truth is, like, you're competing against, 20-year-olds. If you want that type of guy, most likely that's who you're competing with. And like
Right.
it hits them, but I think you just one, you shouldn't be looking having that in your mind is a criteria. It's like it's kind of closed mind thinking on
Sure,
the
sure.
relationship.
Yeah,
So they might
and I
find
get
lots of
that.
nice guys, but they think in their mind they're gonna find the unicorn that's 6'2" and,
Well, and I think that goes both ways. I think it does equally go both ways, but, yeah, we that's a whole nother episode for sure. We could get into the dating stuff. What does being strong mean to you now versus before all of this?
well, I think being strong is, willing to address things, um, fast and with precision, and I think that not lying to yourself either up or down, but being realistic of the situation, and I think that especially in today's world, like, people think that you can just put up, think good thoughts and you can manifest your way out of things, that you really have to put in the work regardless. It's not
Yeah.
going, there are no free lunches. You hear about them on occasion, but even then, it's usually not the whole story you're getting from the person anyway.
There's some strings attached. Well, I know we talked about that before recording today was a little bit about that you were even not focused on positive thoughts or psychology, that you have I don't even know if it would be a more realistic approach, but just the way that you tell me a little bit about your thought mindset and thought process.
Well, I mean, I think I always visualize the worst outcome. And I think that once you accept it, like I accepted death, for instance, if I couldn't fix it. And I visualize that to this day, every morning, drowning by that kettlebell.
Mm.
And for me, it makes everything else easier to do. And if I'm involved in something, I do look at the worst case outcome. I don't see it as rosy color, through rosy colored glasses. It's life. I mean, everything is unknown. I mean,
Yeah.
you can gauge probabilities of something happen, but if you actually look at the worst case in your mind, you've already accepted it. The subconscious can't tell the difference between what happened and what didn't happen. So I think
Yeah.
that, gives you some type of less pressure on yourself instead of if you're visualizing like everything being perfect, because then all of a sudden you have like these ridiculous expectations. And then you're overthinking it. You're pressuring yourself that you have to do this. And I think that when you accept the worst case outcome, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, you don't look at all the outcomes, but
Right.
if you only focus on like the best outcome, I mean, I just
You
don't see how it's going to work. And if you focus on the worst outcomes, especially if you have something that's further down the road, you're actually gonna make changes along the way because you're saying like, "Why would this happen?" And, if you're like, "I'm gonna lose 20 pounds in, 2 months," and, each week, like after 2 weeks, you're like, "I'm not gonna lose 20 pounds. I'm gonna actually gain weight. Why?" I mean, then you start looking at the why, so you can actually refine that strategy versus, "No, it's gonna happen. Weight loss is, sometimes miraculously, it just happens, fast." So I think
Yeah.
that, like, when you're honest with yourself, and
Yeah.
negative outcomes are being honest with yourself because you're prepared for them,
Yeah,
so
and
you visualize.
failure, I think failure too, right? I mean, it's kinda like walking through the fear of failure, walking through your fears so that you don't have to hold on to them. When you talked about overthinking, and I think, like you said, overthinking the positive, I think is just ignoring that you don't wanna think about any negative, but, in what you're doing here, what you did, and I'm sure there's, not every moment's perfect, right? There is moments of, hey, we gotta, today's a new day. We're gonna do this again. Yesterday might have been great. Today you're gonna go in with a great mindset, but stuff happens. Life happens. So
Well, I that's this comes back to, like, the systemization of the process, is that, like, like, I have a system for, like, working out. I have a system for work, and everything has contingencies in them. So there is no thought process to it, and yeah, I do the cold, like, for the cold plunge. I have, like, if I'm running out of time, if I don't have the allotted time to do the cold plunge and workout, what do I do? And I think that when you have it like that, it's designed by you on a good day, so you can operate it on your bad day. So you're not sitting there saying, like, should I do it at all? You know,
mhm,
um, and you're thinking about it for 3 hours, mulling it over. It's better to have a plan, what you're going
yeah,
to do, and design for you can do it on your worst day, so you're consistent, and that's when the real, miracles happen, is from consistency. You don't have to do, like, these extreme anything. It's just those little tiny increments of improvement. They add up fast,
yeah,
and the system prevents you needing motivation. If you're, for instance, having a workout where you need a lot of motivation, you will fail. Like, I don't believe in motivation. You shouldn't have to listen to Tony Robbins before your workout to do your workout, because it's only a matter of time before you won't be motivated anymore from it.
yeah,
Versus if you start slow and you can do it every day, no matter what, and under any condition, whether you're sick, injured, you find a way, and it's better than missing. And if you miss, it's a pretty slippery slope. But if you stay consistent, you eventually become the system. And that's where you start really learning about yourself from consistency. So I think that systemization is so important. It will really get you there versus just flying blind.
mind blowing. Yeah. Well, as a last thought for our listeners, if someone's standing at their own version of a breaking point, what's just some words that you would want them to understand? You know?
Well, I would say is that everyone has gone through a breaking point if you've lived long enough. And if you haven't gone through a breaking point, you probably really haven't lived. Um, so it's good you're going through it. It's not a bad thing. You will learn a lot from it. And if you say, well, this problem, no one has this exact problem. No one probably has it the same, but there are people you can find, especially with technology, that have had similar problems, and you can see how they did it to get an idea. And then you can start tailoring it versus what will work for you, what you're compatible with, and slowly start making changes. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. Someone probably already has the template there for you, that you
Yeah.
just need to tweak it a little based on your personality, what you're compatible with. So I would say, and it's good to see when other people have gone through it, that they did it. You know what I mean? It's a big difference. And if you look at, I think it was the 4 minute mile. I think that was like a big barrier. Everyone tried to break it, and finally, I think it was Steve Bannister broke the mile. And then after that, like, a numerous amount of people did it. because it was just a mental barrier. And I think when you see right now, you think you're alone in this, you've never experienced it. But if you see someone else already did it, you break that mental barrier. You're not the first person, you're not that special.
Yeah. No, I love that because I do talk a lot about on this podcast about asking for help and getting support. I don't know how I don't think we're meant to do things alone. And there, like you said, there's plenty of resources out there to help people. You don't have to start something, build something from scratch. And Cam, thank you so much for sharing your story and your strength with us today.
Thank you. It was very fun, Susan.
Well, this conversation armed us with a deeper understanding of what it really takes to stop managing what isn't working and the courage to rebuild from the ground up. It reminds us that strength isn't just about pushing through, but choosing differently, letting go of what no longer fits and committing to the kind of discipline that actually supports the life you want to live. And you can find out more about Cam and his offerings at savagechillstyle.com, where he offers one on one coaching, an online school and community. You can also find a link to his book, Savage Chill Die to Live, or at Amazon. Is there anything else for how people are to reach you? Is your website the best?
Website's the best, and you can send an email and I will respond. And I will say that Um, mostly the book will give you like no matter if you like my approach, um, the system aspect of it, the clutter, the water. I'm not saying you have to eat like me and do like the workout like me. It has to be compatible with you. And if you have questions, email me. I will answer them. Um,
Thank you. Yeah. So be sure to check Cam out and Savage Chill. And please share this episode with a fellow man in your life to keep the conversations going or to start one in midlife. Ask him what his journey's been like. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss what's next. New episodes of Men, Menopause, and Miracles drop every Monday. And you can also watch the conversations on YouTube. And if someone in your life has been quietly saying, settling and just wondering, is this all there is? Is this just how it's going to be? Share this episode with them and give them some hope. Sometimes it's not about managing better, it's about deciding something different is possible. And sometimes the right conversation doesn't just comfort us, it challenges us to rebuild in ways we didn't think we could. I'm Suzanne, your midlife wingwoman, and this is Men, Menopause, and Miracles. And remember, midlife isn't where you learn to manage what is not working. It's where you decide to rebuild what is. I'll see you next Monday. Until then, take care and bye for now.